Hello guys, welcome to today's tutorial. This is a continuation of the tutorial I dropped on React query. In the previous tutorial we looked at the use query, how you can fetch data with the use query. So today I will be showing you how to use the use mutation to send data to the backend. I realized that the first tutorial is not enough since it only treated the use query hook. So today we'll be looking at the use mutation, how you can use the use mutation hook to send data to the backend. So you can think of React query like you think of Redux, but much more simpler. So you can do a lot of things with use query, just like Redux. If you are using React query, you don't need to implement state management. It's only if you desire to, because you can do virtually everything a state management tool will do with just React query. And that, you know, greatly simplifies your implementation and reduces the bundle size of your application. So you can implement authorization, authentication and authorization and things like that with React query. So I'll probably drop a course on that for the price of a teacup, you know, to show you advanced things you can do with React query. But for now, let's go into today's tutorial. So today we'll be looking at the use mutation hook, which is used for you know for performing mutations. Also in Redux, in all this state management, you have the mutation hook and you have the query hook. So that is exactly the same idea behind uh, React query. So you have the use mutation, which you use to send data to the backend. You can see here they're sending data to do uh, backend using the Axios, using the mutation function. So today we're just going to look into this implementation, and I'm going to show you uh, how you can implement this in your application and fetch data using the use mutation. So let's get into it. So I have here just the same application we worked on. I'll drop a link to it, to the GitHub on the description of this video. So we implemented this the last time, fetching this from the backend. We created a demo backend on Next.js using the API route where we return this and then we display it. We fetched this with the React query, uh, use query hook. So basically today, so I just created another route for this form, name and email. So we're going to be sending the name and email to the backend. In a real world application, this can be a login form where you have the name, email, the password. But this is just to simplify this tutorial so that you understand what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, so here we have the same application we used for the first tutorial. So this is just this is a basic page. I created a folder inside the users uh, directory called create and added the page.txt. So if you have idea of Next.js, Next.js uses file routing, especially when you're using the app directory. So this app directory enables us to use server-side rendering and all that, and also uh, client-side uh, to be able to separate the server side from the client side much more easy. easily. So basically, this is the page, just a form here. You can see the form. We're using Tailwind to style the form here. You can see the input form. So that's basically what I have here. So now I'll be showing you how we can implement the uh, use query. So we're going to go to our hook folder, and we're going to write the function in the function to fetch the uh, data from to send the data now to the backend. But first of all, we need to create a API route that would receive the data. So we have here API/users /routes, which is a get endpoint. So we need also a post endpoint. So we can just continue, and just create a post function, which will be picked up by Next.js, or we can create a folder, So I think I'm going to create a folder here called create, and create a route file .ts. Now I'm just going to copy this code here and paste it inside the route. But instead of get, we need to change this to post for it to be available. So we have our post here, and then what we want to do next is receive data from the endpoint. So we need to import our request and response. Request from next request. Next request, and then that should be REQ. And then the response, next response. So we are sending a promise array back. So basically we need to get the response, the data from the request. So using converting it to JSON here. And after we've done that, I'm just going to simulate uh, a delay using set timeout. Set timeout, and then let's just make it 2 seconds so that we can test the loading feature. And then after that, I think we can send the response. We can send the response to the front end. We can just move this. Gonna move. We don't need data since we are just simulating. So but we're just going to a post request. For example, we are creating or we don't even need to uh set the not compulsory. So I think so this is enough for our backend. Now we need to create the hooks. So here we're going to create a function, uh, create a user. I'm going to remove this. We are not returning the user. So yeah, I'm just going to simulate this, and instead of the post going to be instead of the get going to be a post that we're going to use. So I think for fetch, I think we need to pass an option where we can set the method and the content type or something like that. Usually don't use fetch. Let me check the documentation. Okay, so well, we'll set the headers. And then the content type, application JSON. So we can now send the body here, body JSON.stringify. Uh, just going to say user. Then we need to pass the user as a user. Have a type of user. So I'm just going to make this optional because make this name also optional because we are expecting, remember, for the form here we are expecting the email and the, or I can just create a new interface for the create user. I'll call this create user. And change this to, we have name and email. Just change this to email. And then we use this as the type. So we have I'm going to export this because we're going to need it. You can choose to have a mutation a mutation function here, just like we have the hook here, or you can also place it into your component. So let me show an example of us using it directly in our component. So I'm just going to save this, copy this, and then come right here. So first thing we need to do is import the use mutation from. So to do that, I'm just going to, from React query, let's create a mutation for this create user. So I'm going to call it create user mutation equals to use mutation, and then this is where we'll bring in our create user function, pass it to the use mutation, and then we this is where we can destructure the functions, the onSuccess and onError functions. Basically, uh, the event functions to determine, to know the success and the status of our API calls. So here, one of the functions we can use, you can see here already. If you click on Control Spacebar, you can see all the functions of, you can see all the functions of useQuery that you can pass. You can see fetch query, fetch for its mutation, mount. But what we need right now is the onSuccess. onSuccess and on uh on error. So we want to know when there's an error and when it succeed. This one doesn't seem to be updated. Anyway, let's continue. So we can destructure the onSuccess. I will pass the data. Oh, it seems I'm implementing for the old version of useMutation. So I'm going to change this a little bit. So you have to be careful. Uh, I'm currently using the latest version of React Query. So whatever version you are using, you need to make sure that the implementation follows uh, the package. So the latest version now is 5.920, which is what I'm using. So I have to implement, you know, following the rules. So I'm going to update this a little bit. Our function, our API function will not go here. It will go directly here, and we're going to attach it to the mutation function. You can see now that my typing matches with what what VS Code is highlighting. It's following the TypeScript definitions. So this is the mutation function. This is where you pass the function to call your API, and then you now have your onSuccess, your event handlers. You can see here we have unsettled, also unmounted, network mode. So you can go into the documentation and look at all these retries and all that, and get a better understanding of what each one of them do. So for, for this tutorial, we are just looking at the basic and basic implementation and how you can, get started using it. So basically, we have our own success and our own error here. We can also attach a retry to make it retry, when uh probably if there's a internet disrupt or something, so you can give it the number of time it would retry by using this retry here. So you can say retry 3 times. So it will retry to keep calling the endpoint if it fails for 3 different times before throwing an error. If you add this retry, so you can just just go through the documentation for each of the functions. You can see all the other unsettled. This is when it has resolved. That is when it has gotten a response from the backend. Retry delay, the number of seconds you want it to delay before retrying. You can see all that. Throw on error. If you want it to throw a specific error when there's an error, you can use this. So just take a look at this. Take a look at all the functions and see what uh the meaning of each one of them does. You can also see here is what you pass for this get GC time. You can pass in a number or the undefined. You can see unsettled, receive data, error, variables, and context. So basically, this is just how you implement that, and then we have created our mutation, but we've not used it. So how do we use our mutation? How do we use our mutation? So we are getting to the form part now. There are different ways you can use your mutation. You can use it directly in your form, where the form is uh clicked, or we're going to be using this undo submit. You can see it's attached to the form on submit already, and we are already preventing default. This is preventing the form from reloading. So we can then call our mutation function inside the undo submit function. So basically, we'll just structure our data here by saying const uh, user data is equals to, you pass in the name and then the email, which is what is needed. And then we now call our mutation and pass it the data. So how do you call it? The name of our mutation is create user. So create user mutation dot. You can also see all the, all what you can call, but for submitting our form, we'll call the mutate. We will call the mutate. So if you scroll to the mutate function, you'll see here a description of the function. It's a pity that this is not wide enough, but you can also click on this and click on this to see, to inspect. If you want to inspect any of the options, you can, inspect it through here, through the TypeScript declaration. So basically, that is that about that. So we'll call the mutate function to submit, and we pass in our user data. We are getting a error there. Let's see what that error is. Argument of type name string email is not assignable to create user of property email and incompatible. Type string is not assignable. So I think we made a mistake in our declarations. So we need to go back to our mutate function, to our hook, where we declared this should be string. You can see now that the error has gone. That's the beauty of TypeScript. It prevents a lot of errors from happening. than when you're just using JavaScript. Since JavaScript is loosely typed, it's going to give you a lot of headache, fixing bugs and all that. So you can see that the error is gone. So this is how you can, call your backend. You can send data to your backend using uh, React query. And you must note that we are using the TanStack React query, which is the updated version of React query. React query, there's also another version which is just from React query. I'm going to show you that in a jiffy. So if we do this, you can see that it wouldn't throw an error. There's a version called React Query. It's actually showing alone. And there's another version, which is this. This is the latest version. This is what you want to install, not this. So you have to note that those two are quite different in their implementation. So basically, I'm going to remove this and so let's test this out on the front end. So I can say Josh test at gmail.com. And then click on, I want us to inspect the network. You can see we are getting a error, 405 error. Let's see what the error is about. API users post. We don't have a API, a post endpoint for API users. So there's a mistake in the function that we created. You need to update this to API users / create. Remember the folder we created here for Next.js API routes is also file based routing. So API users create. So this should work better now. Let's try this again. It's still getting, but now is a 500 internal server error. See, unexpected end of JSON. I think the problem is coming from the endpoint. Let's wrap this in a try catch. I'm going to remove this from here. Just place it here. And if there's an error, I also want to throw an error. Let's throw an error saying login failed or something. Login failed. a 500 error. Save that. Let's go back to our, then let's click on. So you can see now we have a user created successfully. So that basically fixed the error. You can see our post request here. You can see we are calling the API users create endpoint. So that is that about that. So the next thing I want to show you here is how you can, display different status such as the loading, uh, the errors, and all that in our application. So let's see how we can. So basically, you can, for example, okay, let's do this. Let's first disable the button when um when the user clicks on the create user. I want the button to be disabled until the the call until the network call resolves. So how can we do that? We pass in a disabled, and then here pass in a condition. And inside this condition, you don't even need to pass in a condition. You can just pass in the mutation. But this time, remember the name of our mutation. Our mutation is create user mutation. So create user mutation dot is loading. So we can directly access its loading from it this way. You can see here is error, but I'm not seeing is loading here, is pending. That is what we have here. So you can also use this pending here to disable the mutation. And let's save that. So let's see if we can catch that on the front end. So this is too fast. What and that is why I placed the response in the, let's try migrating this back here and see if we can uh if this will work. So you can see, if you notice, I wasn't able to click that for a couple of seconds. See that it changed. So this is what we're gonna do. Let's update the code. Let's update the classes. So here I'm just going to for the button, I'm going to remove all this and pass a condition. So we want to I'm gonna reorder this a little bit. And what we're going to do is create user mutation dot is pending. If this is true, we want to return bg slate. That is like the gray. Else, we're gonna return the blue color. So we can go back. So you can see let's refresh this. And say Josh test. So you can see it got disabled. There, I can't click it. You can see that it's now working. Let's see. Console error. The problem there is this console error is not available on the browser. So let's change this to log. That should fix the error. That is only available on the server, on the backend. So and then so we've seen the way we can disable the button. Now let's see how we can show the error to the user. There are numerous ways, but what we're going to do is we are just going to show a message here, and you can, like we did with the button, create user mutation dot. This time we're going to be using the is error. So you see all the things you can get. You can get the status. You can reset uh the state of the form, not the form. I mean the network submission. So, but let's go with is error. So, we want to know if there is an error. This is a boolean. Remember, if there is an error, we want to return a paragraph. You can go ahead and style this by adding the class name and adding a color text red. Let's give it red 400, and then you can pass in the error here by saying error and can append the error. User creates user mutation dot. You can see the error object there. Error dot message. So we can get the message there. Let's save that. You can see that the error message is displayed. So I'm going to refresh this so that we'll start with a clean slate. User slash 8. Gosh. test. You can see I'm not able to click again until it resolves. And see it resolving. The reason we're having this notification is because if you look in our code, you can see the alert here in the on success and on error. We have a alert, so you can easily replace this with your toast notification. If you've implemented a toaster, if you don't know how to do that, you can check one of my tutorials on implementing a toast notification on Next.js. So basically that is the brief introduction to the use mutation hook. So always make sure you check the documentation, and you can always see you know the functions you can include, and if there's one that you're interested in, check the documentation and see what it's all about. So I think I'm going to drop a third tutorial, and that will show you advanced tutorial on this unstack React query, how you can do a lot of advanced things like catching your data, specifying the catch time, uh, authorization and authentication, things like that. So um, kindly like and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this and to keep in touch with the update. So see you next time.